Happy Sunday, gang. It's Chris Angel coming at you. Let's talk about marketing for the rest of us. And actually, before we start, let's just quickly say a shout out to Tiger Woods. Today, he won the Masters, his 5th green jacket. Way to go, Tiger Woods. And also, those of you getting ready for Game of Thrones tonight, yes, here it comes. So, okay, with our formalities out of the way, let's talk about marketing for the rest of us. Because the rest of us, if we're not willing to play the games and chase the algorithms and do the things that all the marketing platforms tell us we have to do to be successful, then what other choice do we have? Well, that is what this show is dedicated to. How do we, the rest of us, market in a way that is effective without having to play the games that everybody else says we have to play? So let's talk about one of my favorites, and that is podcasting. Podcasting, by far in my adult life of marketing, by far podcasting has given me the most goodwill. Meaning the podcasts that I've created and released into the world have had the most unsolicited feedback of gratitude than anything else I've ever done. More than Facebook posts, more than Facebook Lives. I get the most heartfelt messages in Facebook Messenger and email of people saying, thank you for your podcast. And they inspire me, they encourage me. I don't know these people. I didn't ask for those messages. They were unsolicited and they were heartfelt. And if you, want to feel like your marketing is making a difference, like that is like the cream of the crop right there. That is the best of the best. So I started down that road of podcasting, I would say 6 years ago. I had one of the first real estate podcasts for real estate agents on iTunes. One of the first. And there's a bunch now. But 6 years ago, there were not many podcast for real estate agents. Well, as much as I fell in love with the platform, what's interesting now is that the rest of humanity is catching up to what a podcast is and falling in love with podcasts. Side note, did you know that Spotify just bought Gimlet Media within the last month or two for $230 million? Gimlet Media is a podcasting company, right? What they produce podcasts like Reply All and the Startup Podcast, Serial. No, they didn't do Serial. Excuse me. They did Homecoming. So they did a bunch of different podcasts, and they just got bought. They've only been in business, I want to say, for 3 or 4 years, but they just got bought for $230 million. They're a podcasting company. Why? And their shows get down. They have a total of 12 million downloads a month for their shows. Okay, this isn't even the stat I'm preparing to share with you, but these stats are worth paying attention to. Right now, one of the things here's another stat I'll throw at you. One of the things that's interesting about podcasts is that there are over 550,000 podcasts in the world. What? Say what? 550,000 podcasts? So it would be very easy for you, for us, the rest of us, marketing for the rest of us, to think that marketing in podcasts is saturated. To have a podcast is saturated. Michael Mayer is a client of ours. He is a best-selling author, very well known in the real estate space. He wrote a book called The 7 Levels of Communication. Michael started working with us, I would say, 9 months ago, maybe. And he has a podcast called The Referrals Podcast. Great show. You should check it out. It's called The Referrals Podcast. Before we started working together, though, we had a conversation, and he had said, I was wondering, does the world really need to put another podcast? Like, does it really? There's a ton of podcasts. Why do we need to put one more podcast out? Right? And he decided to do it anyway, but here's his thoughts. Here are my thoughts about it, right? Like, the world may have a lot of podcasts, but there is only one you. And if you are an influencer, if you're a change maker, if you're a business person seeking influence, then you owe it to the people you're trying to serve to create a body of work for them. You owe it to the people you're trying to influence to create a communication platform in which they can get to know you. And this is why those podcasts that I produced in the past produced such good goodwill, right? People would message me like they knew me, right? Like they knew me. Now, I'd never met them, but they were so grateful and so connected to me because podcasting is a very authentic platform. Now, if you've followed any of the episodes up to this point, or frankly, for that matter, any of my content to this matter up to this point, you know that authenticity matters to me. Like, I believe that in the tribal economy, transparency and vulnerability is currency. And podcasting as a platform is a crazy good way to allow people into your world, right? They don't see, the thing about a book is that a book is very polished. It's very succinct. It's chapter by chapter, lots of revisions, lots of editing, right? But a podcast, on the other hand, is filled with nuance and personality and character and stories and inside jokes. There's all sorts of stuff that happens in a podcast where your people get to know you, right? They get to know you. In fact, it's funny, speaking of Michael Mayer, we've had multiple people say they actually get more from the podcast than from the book because they get all the story that is behind his strategies in referrals, right? So podcasting is a crazy good platform, and you want to think less of it like you're joining the masses in podcasting, right? Like, don't think of it like you're just adding to the noise. Oh, I'm going to make it 551,000 podcasts, right? Or 550,001 podcasts. If you think of it that way, then you're just thinking of yourself as another marketer. But marketing for the rest of us is about how do you make a connection with the people you're trying to serve. That is what we're up to in this podcast, in this show called Marketing for the Rest of Us. So let's reveal the stat. Are you ready for the stat? I've been dragging this out here for you. Are you ready? Are you full of suspense? Here's the statistic. Actually, I can't do it yet. I can't do it yet. I have to give you one more piece of backstory. So when I go and I travel to teach video, when I teach video, here's here's the objection I get when I teach long form video, like 20-minute interviews, right? 40-minute interviews. Here's what people say. Who's going to watch a 40-minute video? That's what they say. Who's going to watch a 40-minute video? Now, my first response to that is, well, your tribe will watch a 40-minute video. Oprah built $1 billion brand on 40-minute interviews, right? On 40-minute videos. People would make sure they were sitting in front of their TV every day, not even knowing who the guest was or what the topic was, because they wanted to spend time with Oprah. She built $1 billion brand on 40-minute interviews. So who's going to watch your 40-minute interview or your 40-minute video? Your tribe. If you're good, if you have something important to say. Look, if you don't have anything important to say, people won't show up, period. It doesn't matter if it's 2 minutes or 40 minutes. Now, I mentioned this the other day in one of these episodes for the show, but people that don't know you will watch a 2-minute video of yours for the topic. They'll be like, oh, I want to know about marketing, or I want to know about whatever it is that you do. So you'll hook them with the topic, but they'll come back for the relationship. So if they've never met you before and they see your video, a 2-minute video, even a 40-minute video, and they caught 2 minutes of it, if they liked you in that first interaction, they'll come back for you for the rest of their life, because it's about the relationship. And this is what I look, guys, you can only do so many coffee appointments. You can only write so many handwritten notes. Those are very, very high leveraged, not high leverage. Those are very targeted, important uses of your time to develop relationship with people. But you can't scale coffee appointments. You can't scale handwritten notes. You need to save those, right? The use of your time and energy, you need to save those for the very specific relationships you want to take to the next level. But what about the rest of the people you're trying to serve? What about the important work you have to do in the world and the rest of the people who haven't heard of you yet? How do you reach them? It's not through coffee appointments and handwritten notes. There's got to be a wider net you cast to find those people. And once they find you, there has to be a consistent place they can come back to get more from you and build relationship with you. And what I'm telling you from the beginning of the show, this episode, is that podcasting has been that thing for me where it is the most leveraged, most scalable thing I've done that has created relationship with people I don't even know that feel they know me, right? So this is all to build up to this statistic. And here it is. You ready? 80% of podcast listeners complete an episode. 80% of podcast listeners complete an episode. So if you have a 20-minute, 40-minute, 50-minute show, right, episode, 80% of listeners will complete it. And I can say this is true for me. I will sit there and when I walk the dog, when I drive in my car, those two places are the places I listen to podcasts, and I will complete an episode. The only time I typically won't complete an episode is if I'm just completely turned off by the guest, or I'm 2 episodes in trying to get into the content of a new show, and I just can't stand the host, right? But you can see that for both of those, it's about the people. Like, I don't like the people. I won't come back for the people. Couple podcasts I really like. I like the Robcast from Rob Bell. I also like Story Brand podcast. Let's see. And then obviously my clients' podcasts are incredible. Like, if you just go look at any of our clients' podcasts, they're amazing. Referrals podcast I already mentioned. Gosh, we have all sorts of great podcasts because the people that we serve, our clients, are incredible humans, right? Incredible humans with important work to do. And anytime you have an incredible human that has important work with an important message, people just want to tune in. Like, they'll stick around for where the conversation will evolve to. They don't even know where it's going to go. But that's the beauty of a podcast, is that it's a conversation, right? So 80% complete an episode. Now, here's what's important. Here's why that's important. Relationship gets built over time. Relationship gets built over time. And if your entire marketing library is filled with 2-minute videos versus your marketing library is filled with 20 to 40-minute interviews or shows or videos that you repurpose to podcasts, I'll explain that in a minute, you're going to build more relationship with your listeners, your audience, your fans, your tribe through a podcast than you are through 2-minute videos. The 2-minute videos, gang, are just a hook to pull people into relationship with you. If you haven't figured that out yet, just go look through your newsfeed. And the people who are doing Facebook ads well are doing Facebook ads with 1 to 2-minute videos in order to pixel you, to build a list inside of Facebook in order to send you more videos and pull you into relationship with them. That is the game of Facebook ads right now, as we speak, at the time of this recording. But the game is relationship. It's not about 2-minute sound bites or 1-minute soundbite videos. That is only a hook. That's a first date. That's a wink. It's still about relationship. Social media and digital marketing is still about relationship. And podcasting is one of the premier best ways to build relationship through social media or through digital marketing. Okay, so right now picture this: 80% of people complete an episode and they come back for the relationship. So episode after episode after episode, they just keep investing in the relationship with you. And you only had to do the episode once, but you get the residual benefit of all these people coming back to all the episodes over and over again, right? Now, let's build this out a little bit further. So if podcasting is all it's cracked up to be, which I believe it is, and I don't believe it's a fad, but it is, regardless, it is what it is now. It is what it is. Until maybe there's something cooler like virtual reality comes along and we all want to sit in a room with some fancy person. But for now, podcasting is an amazing platform. How do we create the podcast? Now I'm gonna let you in on what I learned, right? Because I learned some lessons along the way, starting podcast 6 years ago. what I realized I spent thousands of dollars learning how to podcast from some amazing people. I'll tell you who it was. I learned how to podcast from a guy named Jason Van Orden. Jason Van Orden from Internet Business Mastery was the guy who taught Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income how to podcast. I learned how to podcast from Jason Van Orden, right? He's been a guest on multiple my multiple shows I've had. And what's interesting is as I went through the learning curve of creating podcasts, it felt like a lot of work. First of all, it felt like a lot of work to create the content. Like, what am I going to talk about? What is my next episode about? And I had to kind of like think through that. There was a lot of creative energy expended to think, okay, what's my next set of shows, of episodes? And the reality is I ended up not sustaining those podcasts. I want to say on my first podcast, which was called Real Estate License Roadmap, it's still on iTunes. You can still find it. I want to say I did 40-ish, 45, 43 episodes, which is quite a bit. But I lost steam because the creative energy it required to create it wore me down, right? The other piece of it was just the technology of it, right? Like having to get in there, edit the episode, put the intro on it, the outro on it, sync up the music, all the editing and technology of it all was the other thing that was a killer for me trying to create it. So there were some things I learned along the way. And it's actually at the heart of why I created the marketing agency I created and the way we do it now for clients, right? The way we do it now is, and this is how I believe you could do it if you wanted to sustain it, is to do interview style shows. Whenever there's another person pulled into your show that you are interviewing, right? Or they're interviewing you, either way, it's so much easier to not have to think about what the content's going to be, right? It's so much easier to not have to plan the content. Now, you may have a talking point or let's talk about something, right? Let's talk about something, but you don't know where the conversation's going to go. And that's kind of the exciting part. And it's actually why your listeners stay in the conversation sometimes, because they're like, ooh, where's this going to go? So if you want to be consistent in your marketing, right, I recommend interviews. Do interviews for your content. Now, here's the cool part about interviews. Interviews don't require much editing in the middle, right? Like you can do post editing where you're putting in music and intros and outros and stuff, which is what we do for our clients. But in the middle, from the time you hit record to the time you stop recording in an interview, you don't have to do a lot of editing. Video marketing gets really expensive because of editing. But when you don't have to do video editing, it can become more affordable, right? Plus, that's what makes it authentic, right? When I tell guests that come on the show, like, look, if you sneeze, if you forget your words, if you forget where you're going, don't worry about it. And please don't say like, oh, can we start over? Like, we're just tell me like, hey, I forgot, I had a thought, forgot where I was going. Like, ask me something else. Because that's real life, people. That's authenticity. And in the tribal economy, vulnerability, authenticity, transparency is currency, right? People are tired of perfection, and interview style formats allow you to be a real human being. Okay, so one more piece to this. So we talked about interviews. I like to do video interviews. You could do it in person or through the internet, right? With our clients, we use Zoom. Just do a Zoom call and we record it. Once you have the video recorded, see, podcasting is just a tool. It's a delivery mechanism, just like this Facebook Live is a delivery mechanism, and email, delivery mechanism, blog post, delivery mechanism. What it delivers is the content in your show, your episode, every interview is the content. So once we have, the reason I like to do it in video, whereas podcasting is an audio platform, the reason I like to do it in video is because we can repurpose it over and over again. So we can take your video and put it in a visual platform like Facebook. We can put it in a visual platform like YouTube, right? Which is also indexed and searchable by Google. We can put it in a visible medium like LinkedIn we can write a blog post about it and embed the video in your blog. Do you see I could take one episode and put it in multiple places on your social networks? Okay. Then we can just take the audio of that entire produced show and turn it into a podcast episode, right? So you can see that from one piece of content. This is what we do for our clients. I'm actually outlining for you right now what it is, the very thing that we do for clients. From one video episode, we can take it, capture it, produce it, and release it on all different platforms. And so I'm just telling you how to shortcut the pain of producing a show, right? Producing a show can be painful, having to think about the content, sustaining the content, learning the technology, or paying for the team to produce it for you. All of that can get very expensive and time consuming, right? The trick is to do interviews through video and then repurpose that across all platforms, okay? This is what we do for our clients. If you're interested in that, go to mygroundswell.com. You guys can see what we actually do for our clients, or you can PM me here, private message me here. But that's it, gang. Look, that is it. That is it. Marketing for the rest of us. For those of us that don't want to chase the algorithms, for those of us that don't want to have to play by the rules of Facebook or search engines or anything else, and we have an important message, we have important work, and we want to make real connections. There is a path for us in marketing. There is a way for the rest of us to market, and it's this. This is it. It's transparency, authenticity, right? And relationship. Like that is the option for the rest of us. Thanks, gang, for hanging out with me today. Have fun watching Game of Thrones if that's your jam, and we'll catch you next time.